My name is Peggy, and I'm coming to you from Fort Myers, Florida. We're so glad that you've joined us today, whether online or in person in Nashville. We want you to know that you are loved, you are celebrated, and you are welcome here. Enjoy the service.
Yeah, thank y'all so much for being here today. How y'all feeling? You good? Let's stand up. I see y'all. Cheers. Come on, sing with us. Go on, lay your troubles down. Set your feet on solid ground. These deep as I have found, I wanna follow you. Come on, all you weak and weary, come round now if you can hear me. Poor, sick, and God-fearing, I wanna follow you. I said I wanna follow you. Leave all of your trouble, leave all of your sorrow. Sit down your burden, come on and follow. Come on, heavy laden, don't wait for tomorrow. Come on, all you people, come on and follow. Go on, leave your worries too. Not a bit of good they do. There's a word that's coming through. Go on, leave your worries too. So I call your name in the middle of the night. I wanna know, can you hear my cry? June heat and moonlight. Oh, I wanna follow you. I said I wanna follow you. Leave all of your trouble, leave all of your sorrow. Sit down your burden, come on and follow. Come on, heavy lady, don't wait for tomorrow. Come on, all you people, come on and follow. Oh yeah. Set your burdens down. Set your burdens down. Set your burdens down. Oh yeah. Leave all of your trouble, leave all of your sorrow. Sit down your burden, come on and follow. Ooh, come on, heavy lady, don't wait for tomorrow. Come on, all you people, come on and follow. Come on, all you people, come on and follow. All right, y'all sing it with us. Leave all of your trouble, leave all of your sorrow. Sit down your burden, oh, come on and follow. Come on, heavy lady, don't wait for tomorrow. Come on, all you people, come on and follow. Come on, all you people, come on and follow. Yeah. Man, y'all look great. Y'all sound great. We can hear you from up here. Thank you for being with us at Grace Point today. What we want to do right now is, most of the time in typical services, we want you to introduce yourself to somebody new, maybe talk to somebody that you haven't seen in a while. We're going to forgo that for right now. But what I want you to do is look around the room, make eye contact with as many people as you can, wave, blow a kiss, air hugs, and also welcome our online people, our online viewers. Yeah, we're so glad y'all are here as well. We've got a couple of announcements for you today.
Hello, I've just got a couple announcements for you. First of all, the connection cards on your table are there to fill out if you want to get plugged in, or if you're new and you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can do that there. If you would like to stay up on our weekly events, you can do so by going to gracepoint.net, and just remember that we're Grace Point with an E. One important update is that Tuesday Reconstruct is going to be put on pause for the moment, and our Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. is still on each week. This weekend is Nashville Pride, and we are going to have a booth, and we're also going to be marching in the parade. So if you have time this weekend, we still have a few volunteer needs. One is on Friday from around 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. We need someone to drop off materials to the festival site, wherever the booth is going to be. And then also on Saturday and Sunday, we have 2-hour shifts for volunteers at the booth. We need 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock covered and 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock covered. And that's both Saturday and Sunday. So if you can do any of those shifts, find me in the back and I can get you to the person that you need to be. And then finally, we can do what we do, of course, without your giving. We thank you so much for everything that you've contributed so far. You can give in 3 ways. You can text GracePoint to 77977. You can go to gracepoint.net/give, and you can also scan the QR code that's on the bottom of your announcements page. And that's it.
Thank you, Emily. I know y'all just sat down, some of you. Can I ask you to stand up with us again? You'll catch on this song really quickly. It's beautiful. I want us all to sing it together today.
I will trust in you and know that you are with me forever. I'll confide in you, 'cause you're the only answer that matters. Even in the darkness, you will be my light. Even when I'm hopeless, you will be my guide. I will not be shaken, I will not be moved. Even in the chaos, I know that you're good. You're the keeper, protector. It is you that holds us together when everything else fails us. It is you that holds us together. Oh, 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 oh. I will trust in you, your thoughts and plans of me, they are good. I will wait on you, I know that you will see me through. Even in the darkness, you will be my light. Even when I'm hopeless, you will be my guide. I will not be shaken, I will not be moved. Even in the chaos, I know that you're good.
Sing it with us.
You're the keeper, protector. It is you that holds us together when everything else fails us. It is you that holds us together. Oh, you're the keeper, protector. It is you that holds us together when everything else fails us. It is you that holds us
Sing it one more time.
together. You're the keeper, protector. It is you that holds us together when everything else fails us. It is you that holds us together.
be seated. Good morning, Grace Point. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. We are so thrilled that you're here with us. So thrilled that those of you who are in the room here at 3rd and Lindsley are here. So thrilled that those of you online are with us as well. Last week we were virtual only. This week we're back in our hybrid mode. And a couple things coming up I just want to make you aware of. First, next week, as you just heard, next week is Pride. And so next Sunday is like Pride Sunday. And we're going to do something a little different. Instead of me getting up and talking, we're going to have a panel discussion with some of the members of our community who are in the LGBTQ plus community as well. And so we're going to be hearing stories, experiences, and just what they want us to know. And so that'll be next Sunday. And then the next Sunday, we're starting a new series called Signs and Wonders. And it's a series that is essentially going to go through, in the Gospel of John, there are these 7 signs Jesus performs. So water to wine, walking on water, feeding the 5,000. There's some healings. He casually raises the dead at one point. And so we're going to go through these 7 signs and essentially ask the question, what are they pointing to? What are they trying to teach us? What are they trying to reveal to us? What are they asking of us? And so that's going to lead us, believe it or not, like right up to Thanksgiving. That's where we are now. We are in the time of year where a good 9-week series is going to lead us right up to Thanksgiving, which is right on the door of Advent. So get your shopping lists ready. One last thing, as I'm sure everybody's aware of, yesterday was the 20th anniversary of 9/11, a day that shaped our country and our world in ways that have just been dramatic, and we just live in a different world now, don't we, than we did 20 years ago. And I bet, like me, you were probably yesterday thinking about where you were and what you were doing. I'll never forget I was a junior or senior, well, I say I'll never forget, right? And then I forgot. I was a junior or so in college, and I woke up that morning. I was late to anatomy, which I was taking because I had to take a science class. I picked up my morning breakfast, which was traditionally a Mountain Dew and a honey bun. And I sat down in class, and people were talking about something that had happened, and it was on TV. And I realized I'm failing this anyway, so why shouldn't I go back to my room and see what's happening? And then it just launched so many things. And so as I've been reflecting on the last 20 years, I've been reflecting on the lives that have been lost. And not just American lives, but non-American lives, human lives that as a result of 9/11 and then 20 years of war that followed. And then lives lost as we're trying to get out of that 20-year war. Reflecting on all the people and places and ways our world has been forever changed. And just a reminder that regardless of who's wielding the sword ultimately can only wound. That violence never brings healing. That violence never brings wholeness. Violence can never bring peace. And so just reflecting on all that has happened in the last 20 years and hoping and praying, and not only hoping and praying, but being ready and willing to participate in creating a better way in our world. Because it doesn't happen without us, right? It does not happen without us. The world doesn't change. The world doesn't get better. There is no top-down way to fix it. It has to come from us and our willingness to participate with the goodness and wholeness in the pursuit of peace in the world. Are you with me? That's the only way this thing gets better. And I'm so grateful to be a part of a community like this that work matters to us as well. So what I'd like to do today, though, is I typically preach in series. And what that means is there's stuff I'm learning or there's stuff I find interesting that I'm picking up all over the place that I'm having to put somewhere because we're in the middle of a series. And so when I have Sundays like today where I haven't got anything planned, there's nothing like set on the schedule of what I'm going to talk about, but then I sit down and go, what am I going to talk about? Usually I have something planned. And there's this story from early in the ministry and life of Jesus that has kept popping up for me as I think about it. And I think about it and all the time as I have conversations with people, as we engage around what their experiences have been, as their faith has shifted, or as they've come out, or whatever that experience has been that has altered their lives and relationships. This particular story keeps coming up. So before we jump in, I feel the need, is anybody in here else like either a Bible nerd or you're just a nerd in general, so you're about to enjoy something? Anybody else have that sort of like, give me the kind of nerdy side? So this is, the Gospel of Mark, is chapter 3 is where we're going to be today. And the Gospel of Mark is my favorite gospel. It's the first written around the year 70. It was written in crisis. It was written sort of, it moves quickly. And we get sort of the earliest layer of storytelling about Jesus. And the writer who wrote Mark, we don't know who it was. It's traditionally called Mark, but we really don't know who wrote Mark. The writer has some techniques that this specific writer uses to frame stories about Jesus. And one of those techniques is called the Markin Sandwich. Now, every time I talk about it, I just want to go to like Subway or Jimmy John's or something, because that's where it leads us. But it's called the Markin Sandwich. And here's the idea, that the story, so the writer begins with a story, so we'll call it story A, and begins to tell this story, but then interjects another story. There's an interruption. And then after the interruption concludes, story A is brought to a close. And what we're going to look at today, we're just going to look at story A and the end of story A, and I'll reference what happens in the middle. But we're going to look at a story of Jesus that begins, it's about Jesus and his family, begins here. Then there's an interruption, and then it ends with more stuff about Jesus and his, what we'd say, his biological family. And so here's the story. Now, what maybe it's important to know before we get into this is that Jesus has been, we're 3 chapters into Mark's story, and Jesus has been generating controversy. And he's been generating controversy because of who he's healing. He's been generating controversy because of the way he's talking about and extending forgiveness to people. He's been generating controversy because of who he's eating with. In Jesus' day, there were very strict rules about who you would and wouldn't sit down at a table and eat food with. And he's also been stirring up controversy because he hasn't been practicing ritual in the way it was assumed it should be practiced, specifically here regarding the Sabbath, regarding rest, a day of rest. And so where we meet Jesus in chapter 3 here is we meet a Jesus who is knee-deep in controversy, a Jesus who's being criticized. Good thing they didn't have social media back then, because he would be getting lit up on Twitter. Like, he's doing that sort of level of disruption. He's disrupting the status quo. He's disrupting the boundaries of what is acceptable, what is not, who is in, who is out, who is included, who is excluded. Jesus is sort of transgressing all of these boundaries. And so then, in chapter 3, verse 20, Jesus entered a house. A crowd gathered again so that it was impossible for him and his followers to even eat. When his family heard what was happening, they came to take control of him. They were saying, he's out of his mind. How many of you have family, and this is how they've treated you? Yeah, right? I mean, I think all of us probably, as we've been on our journey, whether that journey has been like making a theological shift and your doctrinal commitments have changed, or maybe you have no doctrinal commitments. Maybe you went from being a super conservative Christian to maybe now you're not even sure if you're even Christian anymore, like whatever that journey has been. But maybe it's been that you've come out and you've been honest about who you are and who you love. Maybe, I mean, it could be any number of things, but you've begun to be more honest and be more truthful about who you are and what you think. And as a result, there are some people in your life who think, oh my gosh, they've completely left the path. We should go get them. Right? Now you have to understand, like, I just imagine this. And by the way, the language here, when they heard what was happening, they came to take control of him. The literal language means they came to seize him. And I just imagine if this were a movie, like you would hear tires squealing and like an unmarked van pulling up to the house and people rolling out with to abduct Jesus and take him away. And I think honestly, they're assuming maybe he's really kind of lost it. The things he's saying, the stuff he's doing, the way he's interacting with people, the crowds that are starting to listen to him and starting to follow him, this is all too dangerous. It seems like he maybe has forgotten who he is. He's forgotten what we believe. And so we have to do something about it. And so they go to take control of him. And it's as if the writer of Mark hits pause here. And then there's a little interlude story where some religious leaders, some legal experts show up. And they just decide, after they're listening to Jesus and seeing what he's up to, they decide that Jesus' problem really is pretty simple. He is possessed by a demon. That's nice, isn't it? Like Jesus is drawing a crowd. He's been healing. He's been offering compassion. He's been doing these, like people's lives are being transformed. And like, well, there's only one explanation. There's only one explanation. He clearly has a demon. Anybody in here or online had anybody say something like this to you? Well, you probably were never really a Christian to begin with. Oh, you no longer hold those same beliefs? Well, you were probably never a believer to begin with. Oh, you've changed your opinion, you've changed your mind, you've had experiences, you've had things that have led you down to a different resolution, to a different place of understanding. Well, you probably never were a part. You were always a goat, you were never a sheep. Anybody had that sort of interaction where now like your past is being retconned for you? Like this is actually not canon anymore. This is not actually your story. You always were somebody who, you were always a doubter, you're always whatever that language has been. So it goes from his family saying, we think he's kind of lost his mind. He's lost himself. We should go get him. We should go forcibly bring him back home so that we can remind him of who he is. And by the way, who he is who we say he should be. And who he is who our religion tells us he should be. And who he is what our society tells us he should be. He's crossing these boundaries. This is really, really uncomfortable. Let's go get him. And then you have some other people show up and go, no. The problem is he's demon possessed. And if we're gonna somehow make this work, we got to get rid of the demon. We got to get rid of the demon. Jesus has aligned himself with the devil, and we've got to fix that. And then notice how the story concludes. After sort of the accusation of demon possession, his mother and brothers arrived. They stood outside and sent word to him, calling for him. A crowd was seated around him, and those sent to him said, "Look, your mother, brothers, and sisters are outside looking for you." He replied, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" Looking around at those seated around him in a circle, he said, "Look, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother, sister, and mother." Isn't this interesting? Jesus is seated with people. He's teaching. Somebody shows up and say, your family's here, and they want to know if they can get front row seats. And my assumption is, by the way, most of the other gospel writers, some of them have this part of the story, but most of them leave out the first part of the story. You know, the part where Jesus' family wants to come and abduct him because they think he's lost his mind? It's almost like when they were using Mark as a source to write their story, they were like, this doesn't look good on the Holy Family. It looks like maybe Mary didn't know. That'll get better as the day goes. I just need, like that one, you're gonna be like, that was well done. Maybe they actually didn't get it. Maybe it's possible that Jesus' biological family didn't understand what he was up to. It's possible that their experience was here and that something was happening in him that led him here. And from their perspective, he's left the path. He's left the truth. He's no longer doing the things he learned. He's no longer repeating the doctrines that we embedded into his life from a very early. It's almost like he's having his own experience of God, and we can't have people having their own experience of God, so we have to go stop that. And then they show up, and he finds out, and he's like, to be honest, let me tell you who my mother and brothers are. My mother and brothers are the people who are seated right here with me, who are following this path with me, who embrace me, who have no sense of a need to change me, but who meet me right here and are curious and open and up for the journey wherever we think Spirit is taking us. I mean, for all the talk about Jesus and family values, it doesn't seem like Jesus' strongest values are, well, we got to keep the family happy. It seems like Jesus' strongest values may be, look, this thing, and he even later in his language, he talks about his movement, and he talks about this truth that it's possible that sometimes following this path will set you at odds with people that you have blood connection with, and it's possible that it will also bring you into deeper connection and relationship, people who become family, who you have no blood relationship with. It's almost like Jesus is saying, to understand what I'm doing, there's this redefinition of what family means. This redefinition of what it means to be part of a family, part of a community. I mean, this entire little Markin Sandwich has the theme of it is misunderstanding Jesus, misunderstanding the work of Jesus, misunderstanding the message of Jesus, misunderstanding what he's up to in the world. And it's almost like what he's saying, I'm building a community, I'm building a family, I'm building a collection of people who will now be that close relationship with me, who actually have eyes to see and ears to hear what I'm doing. I don't think Jesus is making a statement like if you're close to your parents or you're close to your brothers and sisters that you're somehow not following me. I don't think that's what he's saying at all. But I do think what he's saying is sometimes sometimes I'm going to be misunderstood. And sometimes that misunderstanding is going to put me at odds with people. And what that might mean is that my relationships begin to shift and look a little different. Because I think maybe what he's talking about is home begins to look different. Right? Home begins to take on a new meaning, which as I was thinking about this text and I was thinking about this idea of home, it really led me into the question, like, what is home? As we think through what Jesus is experiencing here, what is home? Where is home? Is home a specific place? Is it a specific geographic spot on the map? And what is the feeling? How does home feel? Because what Jesus is doing, I think, is he's creating a sense of home for his followers. People who have left everything. People who have abandoned their trade. People who have abandoned close connection relationships, and they've started following him, and they're engaging in this work of kingdom building. And kingdom is a really dated term, but essentially this idea of what if we were to join God in the work of renewing the world? What if we were to join God in the work of transforming the world around us? What if we were to say how it is and how it's been isn't how it has to be? That we have more options than just resigning ourselves to the fact that we live in a world of violence, we live in a world of chaos, we live in a world of pain, we live in a world where people of power use that power against people without power. We live in a world where the wealthy control it and the poor are dominated by them. What if that doesn't have to be the world? And this movement of Jesus really is, I think, a redefinition of what home can be. Because if you think about the very things that Jesus is in trouble for, radical table fellowship, radical boundary crossing relationships. If you think about what Jesus is in trouble for, transgressing ritual if it is a benefit to a human being. Like, what's more important, to obey this specific rule or to go to a human being in pain and try to bring healing and hope to a human being in pain? I think Jesus is redefining the very center of what it means to be home. And so as I was thinking about these questions, what is home, where is home, what does it feel like to be home, I came up with a few things I wanted to share. And what I love about our community is these may not be the be-all, end-all for you, but it may spark you to think about this in your own experience and journey. And I think it would be interesting if you want to hop on our Facebook group or somehow send me, I would love to hear from you about what these questions might mean to you. But I want to begin with, I think home is a place where we're fully seen and fully known. All right, home is a place where we are fully seen and fully known. And for that to be true, what it means is that home is a place of non-negotiable belonging. And I think that's what Jesus is trying to create here. All right, non-negotiable belonging. It's not you belong if. You belong if you accept our rules. You belong if you believe our doctrinal points. You belong if you do everything that we think it means to be an acceptable member of this household. It's not you belong if. And so many of us, whether it was in our family of origin or in our religious family of origin, we were raised into the world and we were told we were loved and we were told that we were safe and we were told that we belong. And in the very minute we ask a question that wasn't okay for them, the moment we began to wonder and the moment we began to be curious, the moment we began to be honest, suddenly that belonging was now up for negotiation. You belong if. And I get it, this idea of being fully seen and fully known is kind of terrifying, isn't it? Do you ever have weird stuff that you do that you're so glad nobody else knows that you do them? We all have these little idiosyncrasies that we hide from even the closest people to us, right? Because if they knew I did that, they would think I'm the weirdest human being. So I'm just not going to do that in front of anybody. That'll be my own thing. So yes, this idea of being fully seen as the human being that you are and fully known in the depths of your soul, that is a little terrifying. And I actually think that's part of what's happening in Genesis 3. I love to talk about how the first mention of sin in the Bible is not in Genesis 3, it's in Genesis 4. It pops up when Cain is angry that his offering wasn't accepted and he's tempted to use violence against his brother. It seems like what the Bible's arguing is that the original human sin is violence, not eating a piece of fruit. Right? But what happens? The first human beings take a bite of the fruit, the knowledge of good and evil, and suddenly their eyes are open. And what are they given? They're given the knowledge. They're given this desire to judge and evaluate other people, right? I mean, we have an entire industry based on this. How many of you have ever watched a show where somebody gets up and sings and somebody goes, "That's terrible"? We have this entire industry around evaluating other human beings' performance. Now, take that out and blast it into the universe, right? It's a mythic story in the book of Genesis where these first humans have this desire to judge and to evaluate one another. Their immediate response is to cover themselves up. Because in this context, vulnerability is a threat. When you know that somebody's going to look at you and evaluate you and judge you, you do everything you can to cover up and hide. Because their judgment of you may actually put you out of bounds. Well, I judge that you're not good enough. I judge that you don't believe enough. I judge that who you are and what you're doing in the world is out. And so you get excluded. Being fully seen and fully known is truly terrifying because we don't know what other people are going to say and we don't know what other people are going to do. And yet I think that is what home is supposed to be. Not truly terrifying. Home is supposed to be a place where we can trust those evaluations of us because they're not based on our performance. They're based on the reality that we exist, that we are beloved creation of the divine, that we are human beings, that we are not mistakes, that there is nothing fundamentally wrong with being human. And that we can bring our full humanity into home and still belong. That to be fully seen and fully known is to come into a place of non-negotiable belonging. Now, does that mean that in the most healthiest of home situations, and I'm using home as a metaphor, but does that mean in the most healthy home situations there's never a disagreement? Of course not. We're going to disagree about things. Does it mean in the healthiest of home situations that there's never going to be a moment we have to say, "I'm sorry"? Of course not. We're always going to have those moments where we're learning and we fumble it and we bumble it and we have to own up to that and own and acknowledge that we've caused pain. But you can really begin to do those things differently when you know that our relationship and this belonging is non-negotiable. There's nothing you share and there's nothing you are that causes this situation to go, "Nope, now you're out." I think that's what's so beautiful about the early Christian community is they really brought together people of diverse and distinct backgrounds and found a way for them to all feel at this table you belong. And we're not giving you a seat, it has always been yours. Home is a place to be fully seen and fully known. And that takes time, and that takes commitment, and that takes a deepening and growing relationship. But the way those things happen is when on the table, there is no, you do not get kicked out of this. You belong. Second, I think home is a place where we can process all of life's emotions and experiences safely. I remember so many times growing up in church and hearing things like, it's okay to question. It's okay to question. But what was sort of implied in the "it's okay to question" is it's okay to question as long as you end up where we tell you to end up. Or it's okay to feel what you feel as long as you regulate your feelings so that it doesn't make the rest of us uncomfortable. So as long as what you're experiencing doesn't mess with the vibe we've got going on. And I think what home should be is a place where you bring all of that with you and you're not too much for anybody. Right? Home is a place where you can actually grieve. And not grieve and be told, "Well, but God is in control." Really? If anybody's in control of what's happening, they should be fired. Can we agree on that? If anybody's twisting the knobs for this thing, they should be demoted. Really? Does that, you experience loss and it's, but they're in a better place. How is that ultimately helpful in this moment. And for so many of us, home was conditioned on the fact that we act right, that we bottle everything up, that we don't let it out, that we don't express what we're truly thinking, what we're truly feeling. When actually home should be a place to grieve. And it's also should be a place to celebrate. It should be a place where you celebrate the goodness and the gift of life. Without worrying, is my celebrating this? No. You get to celebrate. Home is a place where our anger is actually, should be welcome. Because most often when we are angry, now yes, we act in ways and we can do things with that anger that are really, really destructive and unhelpful. But the fact that we feel anger shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be something we are afraid of. Sometimes our anger actually tells us what's wrong. Right? Like, anybody ever been in traffic and somebody does a thing and you completely lose your religion on them in the middle of traffic? You know that's not about that, right? Like, it's not about the person who cut you off. There's something else going on. And we've been so taught and conditioned to stuff all of that down and never access it. That because if you're angry, that means you're somehow not a good Christian, or if you're angry, it means that somehow you don't trust God, or if you're angry at somebody that you love, it means that you don't love them anymore, and that's actually not the case. Anger is actually, sometimes it is a little indicator, hey, something here isn't right, there's pain, there's a wound, there's something that has happened, and if we keep stuffing this down, then we're gonna explode in traffic on somebody. And home should be a place where we can say, I am so angry. And home should also be a place where we can express our deepest, most profound joys. It's a place where all of that belongs. And home is a place where sometimes we hurt one another. It is, but home is also can be a place where we bring healing to those hurts. Home is a place where we can be honest about what we don't know and what we doubt and what we question, because ultimately that's not a threat. If your doubts and questions threaten God, then that God needs to go away. Right? If I have a question that can completely decimate the divine, then the divine I'm asking questions about is way too small, and we can do better. If I have a doubt or a question that undermines the entirety of the Christian tradition, maybe the whole thing needed to go anyway. And home should be a place where we nurture those things, where we nurture the inquisitiveness, where we don't just hand out stock answers, but where we can actually engage in those kind of conversations. And it's my goal with my kids, for example, when they ask me a question, one of the first things I want to ask back to them is, well, what do you think? What do you think? Not because what they think is maybe the be-all, end-all, but I want them to know, and I want them to learn that from me and their mom, like, the goal is not that we would just be giving them answers to everything in life, because we don't actually have them. That maybe we could teach them how to be curious. And maybe we can teach them how to know when somebody's just trying to stuff something down your throat because they need you to believe it, as opposed to inviting you on a journey of discovery where wherever you end up, you still belong here. I'm sure for some of the people in my life, their greatest fear for me is that I would become like a flaming liberal. That fear was realized. And I think somebody's like, what is your greatest religious fear? I don't know that my kids would become conservatives. Like, I don't know what that is. But I hope if that happens, that I still have space for them to engage in these things, right? I hope that their belonging in my family will never be contingent on them being like me or landing where I've landed, even if I may try to convince them. That the fact that they are here, the fact that they're mine, means that they belong. And home, especially when we think about it in terms of our faith, a home, like a faith home, a community, should be a place where all of the experiences and all of the emotions that are churning inside of us, that there is a context through which that they can be experienced and shared, that somebody else can offer. There's this great line in Galatians where the writer named Paul says, carry one another's burdens, and in doing so, you fulfill the law of Christ. Think about this. Like, if you're boiling it down, what does our faith tell us we should do? Help each other. Help each other carry the difficulties and the heaviness of life. Don't actually heap more heaviness, not more shame, not more guilt, not more, well, you should believe, or you should be, or you should do. No. Come alongside and help make that weight lighter. And the last thing that I thought of when I was thinking about home is home really is a place of rootedness, and it's a launch pad. And I think in terms of my experience and in terms of my religious experience, we have gotten pretty good at the first part of that and terrible at the second part. And we're only pretty good at it up to a point, generally, in my experience. My experience has been home is a place to be rooted unless you do something we don't like or you make us nervous or uncomfortable. And then maybe your roots don't run that deep, right? And that was my experience within the religious context is as long as you are good and obey, then your roots can go deep here. The minute you start asking questions, your roots. But home should be a place where we experience rootedness, where it's a place we know we can always go back to. It's a place we know we can always go back to and that will always belong and that we can always bring our emotion and our experience, and there is a safe place there, non-negotiable belonging for us to process and feel and experience. But also, I think home at its best is a launch pad. It doesn't try to hold us back. It doesn't try to keep us down. And I think this is where, especially religiously, we've missed it. We've missed it. Because what if a faith community, a home, what if our goal was not that we keep people in the same spot they always are? What if our goal, we spark their curiosity so that they can then be launched into whatever is next for them? Whatever that next belief, whatever that next question, whatever that next experience. And I can tell you, as a pastor for 20 years, there are times in this thing where the whole goal for a pastor has been, and I've felt that insecurity within myself at times, like we just got to keep everybody right here. We just got to keep them all right here. And for some people, being kept right here is a beautiful thing. It's exactly what they need. And for others, it's being launched into whatever's next. And when people are launched, it's okay because you always belong. And so whatever that next thing, whatever that next question, whatever that next curiosity. Think about what, I have an 11-year-old, 3 5-year-olds, and a 4-year-old. Tired a lot. And I often think about who they'll become and what they'll do in life. And already in me, I have this sense of I will have to be careful not to put my dreams for them on top of their story, right? That I will not try to funnel them into my dreams for them. That I won't try to just keep them so rooted. Like the idea, like next year, my oldest goes to middle school, and I'm going to have to take 6 weeks off just to prepare and recover. It's going to be intense. And as he gets launched into the world, I know there's going to be parts of me that want to control that experience. And I don't think that's from like a really like negative place always. I think sometimes it's just out of love. Like I want him to have the best possible human experience. But what I also know is that part of that is letting him become his own human being in the world, letting him develop his own questions, letting him develop and follow his own curiosity, letting him become who he'll become. Somebody asked me, like, do you worry that your kids won't be as religious as you are? I don't. I want them to be good human beings, whatever that ultimately looks like for them. Because if I try to control them into the same thing, which is what happened to so many of us, we try to get controlled into the same exact system we were raised in when that system no longer fit us well. Or I was like trying to put on shoes that were too small and then being told to walk around in them. Home is a place, ideally, I think that we can always come back to and know we belong, but is also that place that roots us on and encourages us and cheers us on as we launch into the world in whatever that looks like. We use this language here at Grace Point a lot. Welcome home. That we want this to be a place, for those of you who found this community to be a place that you want to be rooted in, that you found this community to be a place where you want to find your belonging. We really do want this to feel like home. And so I've been thinking about this. At Grace Point, when we say welcome home, when we invite you to find home here, what are we talking about? I think what we're saying is we're inviting each other to come with our full selves, which can feel scary. I get it. It can feel scary on the front end. And it can feel scary in the middle and maybe at the end. But to come with your full humanity, to be seen and known for all of you, right? The parts of you that you're most proud of and the parts that you're like, gosh, I'm not so proud of that. We want this to be a place where you can bring your full humanity and know that you will be embraced, you will be loved, and that you have non-negotiable belonging in this family. That you can bring the full spectrum of your emotions and your experiences. And that isn't out of bounds, that is exactly what home could be. A place for you to feel connected, and a place for you to feel like that being a part of this family launches you into the world to be everything you could possibly be. That your curiosity and your humanity are nurtured here. So that then you can go into the world without fear. Well, what happens if I go and I read a thing and I have a question, and that question, it's challenging to what the Christian faith says? That's okay. I bet you won't be the first person to ask that question, but if you are, that's okay. There's space here for that question. When we say welcome home, we really want that to be the case. That you find here in this community, in this space, for those of you who are in this room, and for those of you watching online, our digital space, that in everything we do as a community, that you feel a deep sense of non-negotiable belonging, where you bring your whole human self, and you're not being told that to be human is bad, but you're being told that to be human is to be an image bearer of God and inherently good. Where your questions, your doubts, your confusions, your emotions, your experiences, where everything ultimately belongs. For those of you who've been around Grace Point for a long time, I hope that's what you found here. For those of you who are just dipping your toes in the water, I hope that is exactly what you find this community of people to be. We're not perfect at it. We fumble and bumble sometimes. That's part of the human experience as well. But yeah, I know together that we can create that kind of community, that kind of safe place that holds all of us and then launches all of us into whatever that next stage of transformation, growth, and all of that can be for us. Are you with me? That's what we mean here by welcome home. Let's pray. God, for those among us who are looking for home, a place to be seen, a place to be known, a place of radical embrace, a place of non-negotiable belonging, our deepest hope is that that's who we would be, that is the community we're nurturing and fostering here at Grace Point. That in all of the imperfection of it, that we really do long for this kind of community to exist. A community that transcends geography, that transcends time zones, that transcends differences of opinion, a community that transcends all of the things that possibly divide us, and in which we find ourselves known, heard, seen, and loved. May we continue to develop a wide embrace, because in doing so we embody and imitate the wide embrace of this Jesus, who sometimes people thought he was maybe losing it a bit, and actually maybe what he was doing was finding himself and finding the kingdom and finding home. We are grateful. We offer these things in gratitude. And everybody said, amen.
Have you ever heard a voice that sounds like an old friend? Takes you right back to the kitchen. You can almost smell the cake that your grandma made on your birthday.
Have you ever laid on your back under a poplar tree, thinking about all your memories, looking at the sky, wondering why this feels like home?
Like in Tennessee. fly away. Looking at the sunset, it'll make you forget all the troubles all the day can bring.
Have you ever been staring up at the starlight, getting pretty close to midnight? It sounds just like the wind is singing your name, and it feels like home.
Like a Tennessee river in the morning takes your breath without a
Feels
warning.
like home.
Like smoke rising up from the mountains, all the beauty
Feels
surrounding.
like home.
Like Elvis and Dolly singing a melody that's bringing you home. 'Cause it feels like home.
Oh, it feels like home. Feels like feels like home. Feels like home. Feels like home. Feels like home.
Let's thank our band today. Mic over there. So a couple things before we leave today. As you may remember, today is Nathaniel's last Sunday with us on staff. And so I wanted to take just a minute to express our gratitude and our appreciation for everything you are and for everything you've done as a part of our community, to love our community, to help our community. Can we thank Nathaniel for his good work? I've always wanted to be able to whistle like that for moments like this, and I've never been able to. And I also wanted to share with you, so the process, when Nathaniel shared with me that he would be transitioning off staff, we began a process of looking for who was going to step into that role and direct operations and communications here. And I'm so happy to tell you that we have found that person, and that person is Emily Wire. And we are so glad to have Emily officially today joining our team here at Grace Point. So thank you so much. Emily, we're so excited for you to be a part of this team. Do you have anything that you want to share besides the benediction?
Well, I would just like to thank you and the staff and the Leadership Council for trusting me with this position. I would definitely like to thank Nathaniel for everything, all the little and the big things that he's done the past 3 years. And also thank you for helping me in this transition process.
Fantastic. So Nathaniel and Emily, can we thank them? And then Emily's going to send us out with a benediction.
So I'll send you off with these words of affirmation that as you move on this earth and dance in this world, you get to function from approval and not for approval, because upon your creation, you were already pre-approved.
Thank you. You're dismissed. Have a good day. Oh, feels like home.